Good evening, morning, afternoon to all of you, wherever you are. My name is Olavo Amaral. I am speaking on behalf of the eLife Global South Committee, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to our today's webinar, which is on fair and equitable publishing models, how to transition to Diamond Open Access. The session is being recorded, will be made available on YouTube in the near future. We'll be speaking in English throughout the session, but we do have an option for captions in Zoom. So whether you are in the desktop or mobile, you can click the captions button and enable that for your whatever language suits you better. We will be we're speaking on behalf of eLife. eLife is a journal, as you all know, but it is also it brands itself as a nonprofit to help scientists accelerate discovery by operating a platform for research communication that encourages and recognizes the most responsible behaviors in science. That includes open science, which is why we are gathered here. You may be aware that eLife currently operates within a rather innovative model in which it does peer review on preprints. Once a paper does go out to review, there are no reject, accept decisions. eLife has been running this model for around 2 years now. There have been periodic updates on how that has been going. We'll probably share a link to one of them in the chat, so perhaps Shane can do that. One of the things that, of course, is still not a Diamond open access model. It still costs money to run. It still does charge authors. So one thing that eLife has established in the meantime is a committee to discuss with people from the Global South who are probably the most severely affected by these costs to discuss these and other issues related to open science. The committee has existed since late 2023. Currently has 8 members across the road, which will soon meet. And we have decided to put together this webinar to discuss the question of equitable publishing and how to transition to Diamond Open Access model. For the same, we have invited 4 panelists who are Bel Packard from São Paulo, Cielo, Brazil, Ashley Farley from the Gates Foundation, Fernanda Behel from the Universidad de Cuyo in Argentina, and Shane Alsop, who will be representing eLife in the webinar. And I will now, actually, just before I pass on to Rosamund Zicken, who will be moderating the session, eLife does have a code of conduct to foster a transparent, constructive, and collaborative environment. So we urge all people to be collegial and open-minded and open to listen, to try to include everybody here and embrace diversity in opinions, perspectives, and beliefs. If you feel uncomfortable or unwelcome at any point during this webinar, please send us a direct chat message or contact the eLife Safety team at that email. We will be recording, so if you do not want to be recorded, please do not turn on your camera. This will be shared later. Concerning questions at the end, so each panelist will speak for around 10 minutes, which leaves us around half an hour at least of time for a Q&A in the end. You can send questions both via the Q&A function or the chat function. Q&A gives us more structured a list of questions. It's easier for it to manage, but on chat you can talk to everybody. So I mean, feel free to use whatever alternative you think is best. The Q&A questions only come to us panelists. So we'll be taking note of the questions and passing them on to Rosamund so she can mediate the discussion in the end. I think this is pretty much it. So I'll pass. And there's also a feedback form. Sorry. So if you can fill this feedback form at the end of the webinar it's a very simple form just for feedback on the session. We'll be really glad to hear from that. This is about it for housekeeping. So I'll pass on to Rosamund Zicken, who is moderating today's session, and I leave you to Rosamund and the panelists. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Oliver, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining our session today. And I hope you can hear me very well. Oliver, can you hear me? All right, great. So I am delighted to welcome my fellow committee members alongside today's panelists as they all join to discuss today's topic. Before we do so in introducing the panelists as well as talking about today's topic, I would like to provide a little bit of background on our committee. eLife Global South Committee for Open Science was initially formed in 2023, specifically in the month of July. And the committee brings together researchers from countries and territories that share characteristics with regards to socioeconomic politics, limited representation, and policy influence on key issues regarding open science. The committee provides a dedicated space to work with eLife towards greater involvement within science communication and innovation. And its pillar of guidance in improving eLife's outreach and support to researchers in the Global South. Our committee, as you can see, currently consists of 8 members, with our membership spanning Africa, Asia, and India, and Latin America. So the first person, as you can see, is Olavo, who introduced the session today. We have Henry, we have Shandana, who is also present, and Habeto, who is the current chair, and then myself from Rwanda, and I'm also the co-chair. And then we have Mohammed, Carolina, and Mercury from these parts of the world. Moving forward, today's webinar will explore the transformative potential of Diamond Open Access as a foundation for a fair and equitable publishing ecosystem. We will define what Diamond Open Access means, examine how it removes financial barriers for authors and readers, and outline practical pathways towards community-led models. We're going to draw examples all over the world, and we will highlight the structural, financial, and governance frameworks needed for sustainability, clarify the roles of key stakeholders, and emphasize the collaboration required to build more equitable, scholarly, communicable system. And now, allow me to introduce our first guest speaker, who is no other person than Shane Assop. So Shane is Publishing Development Manager at eLife, where he helps develop promotion and adoption of open access publishing agreements with institutions, funders, and society partners. He also supports outreach and community initiatives and has helped socialize the eLife model across the global network of researchers and institutions. Shane, we invite you to share your screen, and you're highly welcome.
Thank you so much, Rosalind and Olavo, for the introduction. It's a real privilege to be here today. I'm just going to make sure that I'm sharing the correct screens. Can you see the necessary slides, and do they appear correctly? Fantastic. I'm juggling a couple of screens today, so bear with me. Great. Okay. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here today and a real privilege. I'll start with a brief sort of introduction to eLife. As Olavo mentioned, we're sort of operating a new model of publication that's sort of centered within the ecosystem of PRC, or Publish, Review, Curate. But I'll get onto that in a bit more detail shortly. So eLife was established in 2012 as a mission-driven organization that was focused primarily on improving research communication and research assessment. We publish reviewed preprints in the Life of Medical Sciences. And in addition to our publishing and peer review operations, we also have a technology team that work to develop open source platforms, primarily for the review, organization, and dissemination of research. In our case, reviewed preprints, and for initiatives or other organizations that seek to experiment with the principles of PRC. We have a sort of broad goal to disrupt research communication and assessment for the better. So over the last 3 years in particular, we've been working very deliberately to reform research assessment through the design, the launch, and operation of our new publication model. And this is a model that centers on the peer review and publication of preprints. So this is a publishing process known as PRC, or Publish, Review, Curate. So one key aspect of this approach is that we only peer review research that's first made available as preprint. So dissemination happens first, and then peer review and curation then adds really valuable evaluation and context to that particular research article. Another major novelty that Olavo alluded to is the fact that we've eliminated the accept and reject decision after peer review. Instead, publishing alongside all reviewed preprints, all of the associated reviewer materials, so the reviewer comments, the author responses if and when available, but also the eLife assessment, which is a short paragraph that's written in conjunction with the reviewer and the editor to assess all of our reviewed preprints alongside two axes, which is the significance of the findings and the strength of evidence. And this is an approach that we favor over the binary outcome of accept or reject post peer review. And there's a number of reasons that we do this. The goal of our model is to introduce more transparency into the peer review and publishing process. We want to incorporate more accountability back into that process and also maximize the utility of those review objects. So in traditional peer review, those really rich evaluations that can add to the public discourse around a particular article are typically lost, and particularly if rejected after peer review. And so they will typically never see the light of day. We always think that it's valuable to publish these things as a continuation of the discourse around a particular article. Other benefits of this model include the fact that peer review is made more visible and accountable, as I've discussed. We produce more nuanced assessments rather than binary decisions. So this helps us to move away from flawed metrics such as journal level metrics, such as impact factors that we know are flawed for the sake of research assessment, and towards more article level evaluation. It also enables faster dissemination of research. So our current median time from submission to publication of the first reviewed version is around 95 days, whereas it's around 250 in our legacy model. And more widely, we can expect to see average time to publication of around 9 months. So it's drastically faster. And this approach also allows the community to build on the reviewed science much more quickly. This is how it looks. So this is an example of an eLife article. We can see the eLife assessment above the abstract. The terms highlighted are examples of our controlled vocabulary, which were drafted through sort of the distillation of around 2,000 evaluation comments from editors that summarize sort of the key sentiments around significance of findings and the strength of evidence. We can see the peer review artifacts are all available on each preprint that we publish. And the publication and review history is available on the right-hand side, and you can toggle through all previous versions and make available those peer review versions too. Authors say that they appreciate the accelerated publication times, the increased transparency, and the reduction of waste via multiple rounds of sort of typically unnecessary rounds of revisions that you can expect to see in traditional modes of peer review. Since we launched the model, we've seen broad support of our PRC approach from authors, but also from funders and from the wider community. We recently showed that more than 100 organizations have publicly declared their support for eLife and their continued inclusion of eLife articles in hiring, tenure, and promotion consideration. So we're not operating in isolation. We're really part of a broader movement working towards the reform of research assessment. So if eLife's mission is, as Olavo mentioned, to encourage and recognize the most responsible behaviors in research, how can we propagate this model and ensure scalability beyond eLife? And there's a number of ways that we can do this. One strand is through awareness building and socializing the model, through open engagement and discussion, thought leadership pieces, and importantly, talking with candor and transparency around how the model works and how it's going. We publish yearly updates, and we have the year 3 forthcoming in the coming weeks. And most importantly, through community feedback, so through author surveys and the like, to make sure that we can iterate into a way that's most beneficial to our author communities. But another approach that's really important is to support the work with initiatives across the entire preprint feedback ecosystem, right from discovery tools like European Sea and Society to preprint feedback communities like pre-review and pre-lights, as well as those groups that are running journal-like communities such as Meta Raw, Science Collab, and PCI, or Peer Community In. And this also extends to those preprint servers like bioRxiv, Cielo, and Archive, etc., who provide that foundational infrastructure for PRC. So if this approach to peer review is to shift research assessment culture, it really has to become more of a broader movement rather than trying to come from one single entity. But, and this is where today's topic becomes really important. Reforming how research is evaluated also requires reforming how it's funded. So open access has removed reader-side paywalls, and we see there's a growing movement to remove author-side financial barriers as well through diamond-like approaches. And these are approaches defined by the likes of Coalition S as being an equitable model of scholarly communication where authors and readers are not charged fees for publishing or reading. They're typically more sort of community-led or community-owned. And so we see that reform really requires that dual sort of approach. We can experiment with publishing processes that emphasize speed, robust and rigorous peer review processes that introduces simultaneously transparency and accountability into the process, which has been our primary focus for the last 3 years. But in parallel, we need to develop new, fair and equitable business models to help sustain those processes. So where are we at this moment in time? Our publishing and peer review operations are sustained through a $3,000 APC, which is collected when we invite a submission to peer review. So as a non-profit, this is levied for sustainability rather than profitability, and underlies our peer review and publishing operations. It also covers our stipends for editors, as well as subscriptions to third-party vendors for managing peer review, production processes, archiving, staff costs, etc., as well as marketing and outreach costs. But it's also enabled us to grant 100% of fee waiver requests since we launched in 2012. With this said, we do really acknowledge that APCs remain inequitable, particularly for research in the Global South, as Olava mentioned. So it's not surprising that diamond models have really gained traction in those regions. And I'm really excited to hear about some initiatives later today. We're also hearing this reflected back in our conversations with librarians and head of collections, open access services, etc., who mentioned that library budgets are under significant pressure. Many institutions are left having to cancel subscriptions simply to manage their existing commitments. So in this context, adopting new funding agreements, even mission-aligned ones, can prove difficult. There might be appetite from an institution to support innovative models, but budget flexibility doesn't always match that particular appetite. So yeah, the institutional capacity to redirect funding into new agreements can be limited. So in the meantime, we've begun to develop new business models that are designed to reduce our reliance on author-facing fees, and one of which moves completely away from the per article charging logic. We operate 2 types, the first one being the centralized scheme. Under this model, the institution makes upfront a payment into an account, and publication charges for eligible authors are deducted from that fund as the articles are invited to peer review. This continues on a rolling basis until or unless terminated by either party, and the institution prepays to fund an account for eligible authors. The initial amount is based on recent publication history between the institution and eLife and covers at least 1 quarter. We monitor this payment on a monthly basis. We request top-ups if necessary. And then if we've overestimated the number of publications that come out on any given year, we'll then go through a reconciliation process at the end to make sure that institutions only ever pay for the exact number of articles that they've actually published. We have ongoing agreements with those in the US and Europe, including HHMI and the BibSam Consortium. And this has been in operation for about 2 years now. Our most recent publishing model is the Uncapped scheme, which has been in operation for just over a year. And this is a 2-year agreement term. The fees for year 1 and 2 are preset based on publication history between eLife and a given institution. And again, the funder of the institution will pay the fees, and the corresponding authors, including authors affiliated with any child organizations, as defended by RAW, can publish any number of publications during that agreement term. So even if they publish far greater publications than we estimated, they're still covered under that initial agreement. Enrollment into the scheme also offers protection for institutions against any eventual increase in APCs or publishing costs, so it provides more predictable budgeting, and is followed by a negotiation process at the end of an agreement term as to whether or not to extend. This contributes to a more equitable and sustainable system. No individual author fee or financial barriers for authors who want to publish in eLife, independent of their ability to pay, and also simplifies the logistics too. We have this agreement in place for around a year, just over a year. And in 2025, the MIT Libraries, Imperial College London, Francis Crick Institute, and the University of Sheffield all entered into this agreement with us. So as I mentioned, as well as the benefits that our model affords authors, we can provide all of these benefits through an agreement with eLife, as well as compliance with OA mandates, which is really important. We know that this is not yet Diamond, but it's important work that we're doing to reduce our dependence on the APC, and in the uncapped scheme helps us move away from the fee per article paradigm. So what's next? As I mentioned, we don't see our current models as the endpoint, rather the start point of our shift towards business models that will help reduce our reliance upon APCs to help sustain our peer review and publishing operations. We're speaking with national consortia to harmonise logistics across various institutions, beginning to explore sort of collective funding mechanisms. But we recognise that this transition will likely involve mixed or a hybrid of models for some time before we can realise a fully Diamond future. In the same way that open access has removed barriers for readers, we recognise that the next challenge is reducing and ultimately removing those financial barriers for authors wishing to publish in eLife. So much like open access was and continues to be a direction of travel for many in the OA community, so too is a sort of Diamond open access increasingly becoming a direction of travel. And that's where we find ourselves today. So my colleague speaking next will be able to help us imagine what a fully Diamond OA future could look like and how we collectively can move into that direction. I'll leave it there and welcome any questions at the end of the session. Thank you.
I'm going to take this time now to introduce the next speaker. And once again, thank you, Shane, for opening the floor with the very powerful presentation on what eLife is currently doing in terms of Diamond Open Access publication. Our next panelist is Ashley Fairley. Welcome, Ashley. Ashley is a Senior Officer of Knowledge and Research Services at the Gates Foundation. In this capacity, she leads the foundation open access policy implementation and associated initiatives. She complements her master's in library and information science through the University of Washington Information School. She has a deep passion for open access, believing that freely accessible knowledge has the power to improve and save lives. Welcome once again, Ashley. Over.
Thank you. Just confirming everyone can see and hear my slide. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Rosalind. Great. I'm very excited to be here today to share some of my thoughts and work around Diamond Open Access. So first, I thought I would start with why does the Gates Foundation care about open access? And I think there's kind of three pillars that are important to us, especially as a funding organization, working in, I think, topics globally. Increasing speed and accessibility of research dissemination continues to be something that's incredibly important. Not just publications, but also data sharing that helps us make informed and quick decisions as we're trying to solve really tough problems. And then the second pillar is promoting equity and knowledge sharing. So this is something that we really want to improve in the ecosystem. And we see kind of the current inequities that are continually persisted in the traditional publishing system. And then the third one, kind of covers both, but we want to reduce the influence, I think, of commercial publishing, which I think helps perpetrate the inequities in knowledge sharing and kind of the outdated metrics. So that ties in with the, needing to assess researchers and have different incentive system to promote a better outcome of knowledge sharing in general. So those are kind of the three main pillars that why Gates Foundation cares about open access and changing in the publishing ecosystem overall. Here's kind of the vision that we've set. I think it's a very, very bold vision. I will say that I don't necessarily think that the current iteration of our open access policy is the end all be all of open access policy, but I think an important pivot to try and change the current system. So overall, my main theme for my talk today and how can we transition to a Diamond open access model is that I think we all know what isn't currently working in the system. So I think stopping that and then being able to pivot and test and experiment with other models is incredibly important. So here's our overall, vision is that we want to foster a publishing ecosystem that is truly equitable and inclusive. And I think a key piece of this is being able to inspire a cultural shift away from prestige and privilege in publishing to one that champions equity and access above all. And I think that kind of keeps us locked into our current system. So last year, may have known that we've changed our open access policy. We've had an open access policy for over a decade now, and it's had a couple different iterations as we see the external ecosystem change, as we see what's been successful in achieving our impact in open access publishing, and what are the things that we're trying to continually change and strive for, as well as how much we've been spending on open access, and how that impacts the broader publishing and research community, and as well as how much authors are able to retain their rights and be able to publish and share the information in the way that they want to. So we have over a decade of learning in the open access policy space, and so we have changed our policy beginning last year in 2025. We moved kind of the requirement of what we're requiring to be made open access to the preprint. So we no longer require the journal version of record be made open access, which is quite a big, bold shift from the last decade of us saying that it has to be the journal version of record. But I think this is a really important shift as we think about what needs to change in the system. I appreciate, Shane mentioned, that we need to change the way that we publish, to also change the business models. And I think that's really key here. And so the preprint is like, in my opinion, kind of the last vestige of what researchers have full rights over and control to share in the way that they want. And so that's what we're requiring. And that fulfills our open access policy. And then that gave us the ability to be able to shift how we think about spending for open access. And we discontinued support for individual article processing charges. And then that shifts us into our third pillar, where that gives us the opportunity to then reinvest in different business models and infrastructure. So how is it looking so far? So, we've only had a year of this policy, but we've already seen and learned some, I think, very interesting things. We know publishing can take a while. So, we still covered APCs for all the submissions in 2024 prior to the policy change. But yeah, we're still kind of tracking where our grantees are publishing. The open access, even at the version of record, is still happening. However, we still see that there's a strong, evidence that the current state of the academic career incentive and prestige-driven publishing, of course, hasn't been solved in that year, and still continues to be a barrier. But we've seen the preprint landscape grow. We've seen kind of better integration with systems. We've seen improvement in the use of Creative Commons open licensing, which is important for us. So we want those preprints to be openly licensed with the CC BY license for reuse. And so we're working more closely with preprint servers to make those improvements. And then we've also seen, of course, with the rise of AI, both servers, publishers, and everyone kind of publishing, dealing with the impacts of increased submissions and increased quality control. And then the reinvestment. So, now we are able to kind of rethink what are those alternative, sustainable, equitable business models, and how do we start supporting those? How do we scale them? And I think there's still a lot of unknowns in this space, but we're starting at least small and learning a lot, and then scaling from there. So here's a quick look at some of the highlights of what we are seeing just in the first year of the open access policy. So we've seen a small dip in like overall journal article publications, but nothing that was really outside of the normal trends. I think we are seeing a recovery of these are all of our grantee publications. So anything that cites a Gates Foundation grant. I think we're seeing some recovery from kind of the uptick during COVID, but now we're leveling out. And there's a lot of variables that go into this as far as like how large the grants are, the grants where they are in their project cycle, things like that. But typically 3,500 to 4,000 articles is what we see per year. But we've seen a huge uptick in the preprint. So we went from encouraging preprints to requiring it. We saw a 39% increase, which is great to see just in the first year. We've been working a lot with our grantees, talking them through what preprinting options are, what it looks like, kind of dispelling a lot of the myths that still persist around preprinting. I will say that we had a very low preprint input to begin with, so we know that from a policy compliance perspective, our preprint numbers would begin at a low rate, and we would need to work hard to get that number to increase. And that's exactly what we're doing. And then we're able to see kind of the divestment from APCs. So we spent almost half of our typically is around a $6 million budget for APCs. About half of that was recouped in the first year and then reinvested. So what does that look like? So this is what we've started just kind of in the first year. So we knew, stopping APCs across the board also then had the potential to hurt nonprofit publishing players that we've been publishers that we've been good partners with over the years. So we do have an agreement with PLOS to explore alternative APC models for them and to cover our grantees' publications, as well as also including waivers for PLOS Global Health. So it's really important to me that not only our grantees continue to benefit in the open access publishing space, but really want to be able to make sure that we're investing in systems and models that benefit all researchers. And that's been, I think, a hard shift. And I will also say that, I don't think waivers are the most equitable solution, but they're kind of what we have now to leverage. So that's been successful in the first year. And then we still support, like mentioned, of eLife as kind of an alternative publishing model. And then we also have our Gates Open Research platform. We've started some small funding support for groups like European Diamond Capacity Hub. I'm a big fan of the subscribed open model. I think it's open for discussion whether this would be considered a diamond model or not, but I think it's been really great to be working with a group of publishers that really get it and really want to take action. So they've been really working hard and taking risks to make change in this business model. So I think we've seen some really exciting early successes in the subscribed open model. Also, as a librarian, I love seeing the library community come together and really choose what they want to support. So I think there's a lot of potential there, and it also leverages the current infrastructure for kind of those journals, and it makes it a more cost-effective flip to open. Of course, there are caveats. Of course, there's a lot left to be seen, but I think that's exciting. And we also kicked off a funding landscape that's happening this year with Lyrasis, the Big Ten Academic Alliance, and then California Digital Libraries to kind of see the status of open access journals here in the US. And also supporting the growing community for Diamond Open Access. So earlier in February, we had the third Diamond Open Access in Bangalore, which was incredible. It's an amazing community that's been growing over the last 3-4 years. And I think the theme in all of this is really the community support and the community drivers in taking back control of publishing. So my overall theme is action is what really changes things. I linked to a recent article by Bjorn Brems, and this sentence really struck me and stood out to me. So as long as debate substitutes for action, dependency deepens, and then each year consolidates corporate dominance and narrows the window of opportunity for self-determination. And I think, especially this year, this is truer than ever, and so encouraging individual stakeholders to take action. Of course, easier said than done. I know we're still entrenched in a lot of inequities and a lot of systemic issues in being able to change the publishing system. But I do think now is definitely the time to really push for change. And I think there's a lot more momentum and support than we had when I first started this journey a decade ago. So I list out some actions that funders, authors, or libraries can take and kind of what we've seen kind of be successful. I think we know that there isn't more money in the system to invest in new things or to experiment with. So I think we have to kind of stop putting the money where we know it's not benefiting us, and then reinvest that in the models. we definitely need to start to reward and highlight funded research that's published in different venues. So a lot of what I hear from grantees is, sure, there might be a couple diamond journals that they could publish in, but those don't have the highest impact factor, the strongest standing. But if authors start publishing in those journals and supporting those journals, editing and reviewing for those journals, that will start to really strengthen their standing and make them more appealing to authors. Also for funders, I've been doing a lot of work with Creative Commons and ASAP Bio, and we have a preprint funders policy framework that we've been socializing with funders, because I think having a preprint open access policy is one of the easiest, most cost-effective, most equitable open access policies to have at this point. And then for libraries, I think there's been some incredible work around canceling big deals, using vendor values, alignment frameworks to choose who to work with. And I love seeing that work scale. And then we are seeing a lot of shifts in investment to open nonprofit infrastructure and alternative business models. And I also linked in here to a recent paper that I think is fantastic, that really succinctly outlines the current drain of scientific publishing, and also has a lot of actions that anyone can take at any point in their career. It's really well outlined as far as, if you're a career researcher, we know that there are a lot more risks there in taking certain actions, but there are actions that you can take to start to shift. I really do believe that these small changes and movements and kind of taking back control of research by the academic community will have a huge impact over the next couple of years. And I will stop there. Thank you.
Fernanda is a sociologist. She holds a PhD in political and social sciences and currently serves as a superior researcher at CONICET at Argentina. And she has been the chair of the advisory committee for open science at UNESCO. And the chair of the Argentinian National Committee for Open Science, and a winner of the Bernardo Bussell Prize in 2003. So Fernanda is a very knowledgeable scholar on open science, open access, and we take this from, and we'll be very glad to hear from you. So I'll just stop sharing and you can share your own screen.
Thank you very much, Olavo. I will ask you just to confirm if everybody's able to see what I'm sharing. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thanks a lot, Ashley, because you allowed me to start with one point that was made, I think, in our article called The Drain, in which it not only means that publishing has a problem of marketization and a problem of this incredible high costs that publishing has achieved, but also the fact that we need to think about quality journals and to recommunalize, which is one of the proposals in this paper that we call The Drain. So in this case, what I'm going to do today is, in these 10 minutes, to try to present all that we've been doing in terms of defining what a diamond journal is, which is not so easy as it looks like. And first of all, to present to you this project, which is the current project that we could say is a synthesis of all that we've been doing in our research center from Mendoza, Argentina, and in collaboration with many people and many organizations in Latin America and even in Europe. And I think that the first and most important problem that we face when we want to demarketize all this scholarly publishing industry that has intervened so much in scholarly publishing is that we really have a context in which the journals are believed to be a vehicle for high impact type of publishing. And the idea of high impact, the idea of excellence has been for many decades built related to a certain type of indexation, a certain type of impact factors. And so the main problem we have is the culture of publishing that we find, and the culture of research evaluation that is pushing always towards this idea of excellence that is not precisely equitable. So this project intends to help the researchers to change the choice, which is something that I think we agree with Ashley. How do we change the choice? It's only a matter of try to push people to publish in these journals, and reviewers and highly recognized researchers to be a part of the committee, etc., or endeavors like here in eLife. But the thing is that we have a cartography that this project has prepared of the diamond journals in the world, that if you look at the diamond journals by country, you will see that we have journals that are highly qualified type of journals, and for all disciplines. Cielo, as Abel will explain us later, means a very important collection. But for some reason, in the diamond journal landscape, World Sciences Scopus has very, very few journals. And this, it brings us a problem because it's not easy to find even the APC information. We all know the lack of transparency in spaces. But the truth is that if you look at the diamond journals in the world, you will find, well, we found that we have like about 18,000 journals. And these journals are in the majority indexed in curated lists that are, as you can see in the list, not precisely websites Scopus, where commercial publishers have a very important interaction. So I just want to check that we have two problems. One is the fact that in Web Sciences Scopus we have the idea or the belief in excellence, but the fact that the diamond journals are not precisely those indexing systems, and that most of these journals, diamond journals that are in Web Sciences Scopus, do not have an identified country. That means a lot. That not necessarily means that we're an international society or anything. It could mean that they don't have a real institutional or academic anchor. So how do we define diamond journals today, taking into account that we not only have to face the economic problem, the commercial side of the problem, but also that we have to guarantee as a researcher that he or she is going to publish in a quality journal, in an academic journal, autonomous, with what we call autonomous editorship, which means that the community is really leading this journal. It's not just a matter of money. That's why in this drawing paper we said, well, we have a problem of money, but we also have a problem of control. And so the definitions in general that I took here, the most important ones, agree that it's not only a thing about fees, but it's also a thing about the community-driven type of scholarly publishing. How can we go ahead in trying to foster diamond publishing, taking into account that it's not only a matter of fee, but also a matter of academic quality? And this means that there are many non-diamond journals that are community-led, that are high-quality journals, that we have to help them to diamondalize, let's say, right? So that's the difference of the focus that I think we try to argue here. How can we solve, in a matter of relatively small amount of time, the problem of changing the culture and boosting the decision of the researchers to publish in diamond journals, academically quality journals that could shift to a diamond type of business model? And I think that the most important thing is to take into account how we can guarantee the quality of a journal. So we have a lot of national indexes, classification systems in the national scale. You can see them in the bottom of the slide. Kristen, well, research information systems that do an evaluation of the journals. But the thing is that those national classifications have particularly certain features that could be nationally anchored. In the top of the slide, you can see that we have indexing systems that evaluate the quality of the journal. And those are really regional or international kind of curated lists of journals. I can obviously talk about the 4 Latin American indexing systems, Cielo, Latindex, and Redalic, and I can assure that they have all these many criteria that evaluate, first of all, the anchorage of these journals in an academic institution. And in second place, all the features that have to do with the academic autonomy of these journals. So if you have a journal that is indexed, is multi-indexed in 2 or 3 of these indexed lists, I think we really have a quality journal, and we're not working, with its impact factor or journal rankings, as we said. If you can go to the next level, what I did here, and I won't have time because of these technical problems to talk much about this table, but this table only is looking for a comparison and to show you of all the DOA or Diamond open access standards that are in discussion currently in the DOAS MASI and the projects that we have. Well, what we have here is several features that have to do with quality, and these all, if you see, are mainly included in these first 4 indexing systems. I see now you're in the chat your message, Olava. Thank you very much. So maybe just 2 or 3 minutes more. And so in these first 4 indexing systems, the first 4 rows that you see in the Latin American systems, it's interesting that the multilingualism or gender kind of features are not explicitly evaluated because most of these journals are published in Portuguese, Spanish, and of course they are mostly not in English. But if you look at Scopus or Web Science rows at the end, for example, Scopus or Web Science, the problem we have is we cannot assure not even the legal ownership, most of the times funding, most of the times open science either, because we have all these hybrid and different routes. So I think that we can and we should go for a project that intends to boost what we call this multi-indexation, quality indexation, to try to show the importance of the Diamond journals that are included in this curated list. So the next slide, please. The Diamond Future Project intends to create a website. This is in preparation. We have already this architecture prepared, in which what we will offer are several resources and links to different projects, of course, but especially to a search engine that is already prepared by the National University of La Plata, which is called ERA. I will put in the chat the link for you to start looking at the exploration we've made. And this tool is for evaluators and for researchers. And this gives you a report on the different indexations that these Diamond journals have, working, of course, on our cartography that is showing you. So I think that I can stop now to respect the time of the following speaker. Thank you very much for all.
Thank you, Fernanda, for covering this. Now, please, let's welcome our final panelist for today, Albert Parker.
Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this webinar. Congratulations to eLife and all the committee. Very, very, very important initiative. We have been dreaming with the eLife model for many years already, but of course there are tremendous difficulties or resistance to such an innovative model. I will share with you 2 graphics and 1 table that are very much related to the development of the Cielo model and which the main problem is really a question of equity. So let's see if this works. Okay, this is very fast. This is 3 lines, the evolution of the number of articles in Scopus in the last 20 years. And we have the articles that are published in journals of the same country of the authors. And if we take the percentage of the evolution, we can see that the growth of the percentage of articles that are published in foreign journals, of course, these foreign journals are commercial publishers, and those that are published in the journals edit, published in the same country of the authors. The trend, if it continues, it will reach, at least in the Scopus collection, it will reach in the next 2 or 3 years 15%. And when Ashley said of drain, this is, of course, is draining. What is not published in nationally edited journals are going to be published with, of course, payment of APC. In Latin America, situation is terrible, because we reached, in the case of Brazil, we had in 2009, 33% of the articles published in national edited journals. And by that time, it was when Brazil had the highest normalized impact internationally. So the idea that if you publish it outside, or in the what we call here, in the prestige journals, that will increase the impact of the country. That didn't happen in Brazil in this year. Probably will happen in the future. And here I took a percentage of articles from OpenAlex that is published in journals, open access, be gold, diamond, or hybrid. And we can see that worldwide the growth is annual growth is 14%. And I took the comparison between United Kingdom and Brazil, and we can see that even when Brazil still remains as a high percentage of open access, the growth is decreasing. And if we look at the Scopus, the growth is lesser. So we have a situation where the number of articles published in nationally edited journals is decreasing, and the articles that are published in commercial journals are increasing the rate of open access. This is the situation that we are facing in the strategy to develop Cielo. So let's talk very fast about the way we see the equity in the development of Cielo. We focus, we center the issue of equity in this dichotomy, mainstream and regional journals. And we depart from this rule because I work many years in the health science, and we work very much with access of information to lessen health inequity. But the health inequity, the World Health Definition says, is systematic. Okay, so it's not random, it's not casual, it's systematic, it's structural. It's unfair, unjust, and avoidable difference in health outcome. And they say that health inequity comes from social determinants of health, which is where you're born, where you live, where you work, and etc. That determines your health condition. So social determinant of inequities in research communication, considering the dichotomy between mainstream and regional, which is a concept that has been disseminated by publishers and incorporated by national research systems and the national evaluation system. So that is a very established inequity that we need to work in many dimensions to overcome it, So it's systematic, it's geographic, linguistic, as I said here before. And in terms of geography, we consider also not only the commercial journals, but many of the open access journals like PLOS and even eLife, but they are much more centered, in, let's say, in a strategy of research communication that is linked to the concept of the mainstream. Mainstream means top quality, regional means second quality, and that is a problem that is structural, incorporated by research community. And so unfair, Fernando already told, actually also, so we have indexes bias. We publish very critical research in journals edited nationally in the Cielo network, which are undervalued by this dichotomy. And avoidable, of course, research evaluation policies is needed to be and it can be changed, and the system funding, system evaluation funding. And the central problem to overcome this structural, systematic, unfair, and avoidable is investment. So what Brazil, what Chile, what the other country invest in the mainstream journals and what they invest in local national edited journals. The difference is sometimes 10 times. So, for example, today the transformative agreement in Brazil, there is an average that of $2,000 per APC in these hybrid journals, to be published. And the cost of an article, a top quality article in Cielo, is around $300. So it's 15%, less or of the total invest. So that is the main problem we consider. So how to overcome towards we have this Cielo model that we define it as open science, modus operandi, that we are moving the journals. For 5 years already, we are moving journals to the idea of open science and modus operandi with tremendous resistance. And we have this broad concept of impact as a criteria, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. We are advancing very much in all these dimensions. So we have a concept, that the program Cielo, which defines what should be. We have there the principles, open access, knowledge as a global global public good, objectives, and so on. So these are the concept, very much based in the online publication, of course. The Cielo publishing module is actually how you implement. If you want to start a collection in a new country, okay, that is, you follow the Cielo publishing module, and in 6 months, 8 months, you have a collection working with all complexity that involves the Cielo methodology. And the Cielo network is the adoption, appropriation of the model at national level. Network is very, very difficult to implement, very difficult to operate, but the gains are incredible, in terms, of course, division of labor, interchange of experience, division of funding, and also the management of asymmetries, in different topics, which a centralized system simply cannot do, the management of asymmetries. So I listed here for those that are interested 4 documents that set the foundations of the model. So final notes, I just needed to remember that Cielo is the oldest open access model. It has shown to be sustainable based on the concept of the decentralization, okay? Decentralization in terms of development of national capacities and national infrastructure. Cielo Network in 20, this month operating in 18 countries. We hope to reach 20 countries by the end of the year. It's very complex, of course, adopt the Cielo methodology, but the gains are very certain. So the Cielo Open Science model, we continue evolving. The idea is that all the publishing started, the flow in Cielo preprints, but that is very difficult because it is not recognized by national research system, it's not recognized by national evaluation system. And for example, in Brazil, if you finish a master degree, for example, right, you need to publish an article, for example. So, and the article is expected to publish it in a journal, and they need to do that in a hurry. And a high percentage of these articles are published in predatory journals or like predatory journals, which is terrible. They should be published in a preprint, and so on. So we have Cielo data, which follows Harvard Dataverse technology. The idea is at each journal will have a repository, a link. We have also Cielo Books, which is now decentralized by country, and promoting transparent evaluation as much as possible. So the progress, the idea that we focus politically and programmatically and in terms of methodology and technology is overcome the mainstream regional context dichotomy that embeds the many inequities in research communication. So we are looking always for equitable funding, and we are not far from that, I think, and the consolidation of the open science operation. So strengthening the national
You're at
sovereignty.
time, so we have to stop.
Okay. The last phrase, strengthening national sovereignty through national capacity and infrastructure. Thank you.
We're now up for the Q&A. You can leave questions both at the chat and at the Q&A box. So feel free to. There are some questions in the Q&A already. I mean, Ashley has been answering them very, very helpfully. But if I can start with one of those, which I think is more general. I mean, people. I think it was Pavitran. Asked whether transformative agreements would blunt the impact that the Gates Foundation is trying to create in the community. I think more than one person mentioned the idea that, the burden may fall upon institutions or upon countries perhaps to do this transformative agreements where you pay APCs up front. Brazil has made a big investment in this, as Abel has mentioned. So I would like to hear your thoughts on that, whether that is a welcome development in terms of allowing open access, or whether that may actually make the market even less transparent and more bundled. I mean, we talked about bundles. I mean, Ashley talked about bundles, bundling access to papers and access to publishing. And in the end, that also comes up to be a big bundle. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on how do you see this transformative agreements impacting, for better or worse, the current landscape. And I think everybody can come.
Do you want me to just start with that one? I can talk out kind of the answers that I put in the chat. Historically, I have not been a proponent of transformative agreements. I do think that yes, they have served a purpose and they have had success in making a large volume of articles open access. But there was one, I believe it was a UKSG study. Don't quote me on that. I should look it up. But there was the one study that showed that if we were on this continued trajectory of transformative agreements as they are progressing now, it would take 70 years to flip to a more normative open access landscape. And I hope we have more urgency than that. I would in transforming the system. I also think that they're often not cost effective, not transparent. It's really hard to tell which journals are included, what we've seen issues with meeting caps, and so I just think they're not to the benefit of the institution. I think they're the benefit to the publisher who holds them, and then definitely a benefit to the researchers, which is good. It makes it very easy for them to have their articles covered, but I think that also kind of causes the issue where we continue to have those costs hidden so that authors and researchers aren't thinking about that. And we do know it does cost to sustain publishing. I would say, it doesn't cost $12,000 to make an article open access, as we've seen. We see that often the large commercials have a very healthy profit margin, but it is cost, and labor should be supported. So, how do we find that middle ground? And I think TAs just lock us into the current status quo of publishing, and would like to see that change. And I'm excited to hear others' thoughts on that.
Abel?
Yeah, I will make two consideration based in what is happening in Brazil. Okay, so the idea of increasing the open access of the Brazilian scientific production, the only way they found is through the transformative agreement. Okay, so that has this. So as I showed in the table, if you go to Netherlands, for example, they have 90% of the articles in open access, Germany and so on. So the transformative agreement is increasing the percentage of open access. So Brazil is saying, okay, we need to increase the open access of scientific production. So the way defined is the transformative agreement, considering also that as you are paying for reading, why you don't pay also for publishing. The second aspect that we are trying to mobilize from Cielo is that the transformative agreement is explicit. It is explicit the high cost that is being invested in publishing, and it embeds a tremendous inequity, because if you are paying 2,000 by article from, let's say, Elsevier, or why you still are insisting in a system that spends $200, $250, $300 per article in journals of high quality. So this is a dimension that we are trying to exploit whenever possible. We see the government policy, and also we see the research community, because the research community need to be informed that not necessarily publishing in prestigious journal will increase the impact of the research. But in the past, what matters is where you publish it. No, the journal you publish, that was the concept. Today, as we change to really, even if it is old obsolete metrics, even if you go to measure the impact of research individually, not where it is published, there is a big change in this aspect. So that's.
So we have 15 more minutes if Fernanda and Shane want to make quick remarks. Otherwise, we can move to the next question.
Happy to move to the next question. I see that Fernanda's keen to answer that one, so we can get straight into it.
Okay, so Fotis, Mr. Kopoulos says that funders are often emphasized as the key stakeholders for driving the shift toward community-wide nonprofit publishing, but from his own experience and understanding of the landscape, I would argue that national policies could play a much bigger role because they are what creates the level playing field among competing institutions. So the question is, should we really be pinning our hopes on funders, or should we be looking more critically at the systemic conditions closer to academic institutions' policies, incentives, and regulatory frameworks? Fernanda was keen to answer that one.
Thank you very much. If my voice goes away because of Wi-Fi, I'll take out my camera. What I would like to say is that indeed, and this Drain publishing article goes in both directions, we really see that funders have a role and they are related to the whole reform that we need in research assessment. That's something that is relevant, it's very relevant. And in terms of the regional policies and funding, I don't say this is not relevant. But what I do see is that we also have in certain countries, these national classification systems that I show. If Olavo or Abel or people from Brazil agree with me, I hope you can agree with me, the national Qualis evaluation system has a very relevant role. If for Brazilian researchers, it's really the thing they look, it's the list that they look when they publish also. So I think that national policies, and particularly these national classification systems in terms of journals, but also in Latin America or in Spain also, the national accreditation that researchers face and the value that the journals are given there, and this is at the national scale, are also of a critical role in this change of culture that we're looking for. And finally, I wanted to say that when I work with the International Association of Universities or the Regional Association of Universities, I've always told them that there is like a kind of local change gaming. Oh, my English is awful today. Change gaming actor that we have in hands, which is the university. Just having one rector, one president of a university, checking of the university journals that they publish and checking the situation they have, if they have support, can make a change, a very relevant change. I've seen institutions, universities in France with very recognized institutes that used to publish a very prestigious journal, and they've been not hijacked, but bought by the commercial publishers. Well, can we reconquer all these journals for the universities? How? The funders can help, but through the universities, I think we have a medium range kind of actions to take.
Anyone else wants to pitch in on this one?
I mean, I'll just say it's an excellent question, and I just want to say yes. But I think it's more complicated, and especially from my context here in the U.S., like we've seen some strong policy movement at the national level for the National Institutes of Health, and they've pushed for immediate open access. They're trying to do something about APCs, but it's yet to be seen what that looks like. But I think it's quite slow to get them engaged, and I think especially academic institutions in the U.S. We've had DORA, and we have Helios, which is a group who's been working with institutions for change, and there's growing interest. Is just, I think, very slow to get these systems to change. But I do think that there's an overemphasis sometimes on funders, but like we're lucky here, at least from a private foundation standpoint, at the Gates Foundation, like we can change policy and practice fairly quickly, and then hope that others follow.
Well, there are no open questions at the moment, so maybe I can introduce another one. I think everybody here has been quite sympathetic about preprints in terms of making the very basic service that publishing provides, which is putting an article online as open access, a very healthy alternative. I think that goes. That's the center of what the Gates Foundation policy. I think eLife reviews preprints for their reason as well. Cielo has opened their own preprint server. One thing I was asked is the sustainability model of our current preprint repositories. I mean, it is quite patchy. I mean, traditional repositories, archive, bioRxiv, Meta, have been sustained by a mix of institutions, philanthropy, coming from different sources. Is this the ideal model? I mean, how could we make this more robust in terms of how this very, very basic the core of scientific publishing is funded? Abel?
Okay. Preprint servers cost money. So you need to have funding for it. What we are doing in Cielo is conceiving the public funding of journals to be extended to fund also the preprint, because the idea is that we never presented preprint as something against the journal, but something that is very much connected to journals. So we think that in the case of the Cielo module, preprint is sustainable. What we have as problem in Cielo preprint, in Cielo, and I would say in all global south, is lack of state-of-art infrastructure. Okay, the infrastructure that we work mainly based in PKP, which is fantastic, is 10 years obsolete compared with what the publishers are providing. So if we want to advance open access, open science, the international community like Gates Foundation and what need to invest in infrastructure that could be implemented easily in poor environments, like we do with Cielo. But Cielo is also an obsolete. We have a state-of-art discourse, preprint, data, and so on. But when you go step by step, we have obsolete interface. So for me, I am claiming that for years already, PKP or another solution need to receive millions and millions of dollars, okay, to make open access and open science sustainable and competitive. Because we cannot make the equivalence of diamond journals or open access to poverty. No, we think that open access and diamond journal need to be competitive with the state of the art in publishing. No, that is what we think.
Anyone else wants to pitch into that one?
Yeah, I'd say one thing that I think, it's an important question and something, keeping an eye on. I think Abel's right about the technology is really important, the infrastructure, and historically funders aren't great at sustaining just infrastructure support. Usually funding is very project based, and so that's something that's been discussed a lot. But what's been interesting to me is just how overburdened some of the investment supports are in the system. So when we think about funding preprint servers. Take libraries, for example. There are libraries that support preprint servers, and then they support, the journal publication either through subscriptions or then also open access fees. For one article that is published at their institute, they could pay for it almost 3 times, from kind of supporting the preprint to supporting the journal publication and supporting access to that publication. And I don't think that's a sustainable system, especially as we see budget cuts. I don't know the solution yet, but I know that I think it's important to track. And when we talk about financial flows, and now that Gates isn't paying for individual APCs, we do know others are picking up the bill. More privileged lab institutions, it's less of a strain. That's not true for everyone. But I think it at least is really highlighting and honing in on where all the money flows are going. And with that knowledge, I think we can make better decisions, hopefully moving forward.
If you want to stay updated on further events or other developments in the same sphere, you can visit eLife's community page, join the community newsletter, and follow eLife community on social media. We have a feedback form, which I alluded to in the beginning of the slide, and this webinar should be shared on YouTube over the next weeks, and hopefully it will make a bigger impact and be available to everyone then. In the name of the Global South community, I'd like to thank everybody for participating, for bringing in different perspectives. Hopefully this has been useful for everyone that is here, and have a very good end of the day, afternoon, night, wherever you are, and keep in touch. We'll hopefully see each other in the future.